last week on Gleeboot, they sang Michael Jackson. They had a deathly slushy attack, and they sang Smooth Criminal, and it was a banger. And Santana taped something to her underboob, but no one appreciated it. And that's what we missed on Gleeboot.
Yeah. I'm still kind of figuring out how I would do that. I haven't quite figured it out.
You haven't dropped it yet?
No.
Just let it go, Hannah.
What if I need this in the future? I need to figure it out. What if I'm in a sting operation?
To Carol Baskin's Wildcat.
Yeah,
where are you gonna get?
The Cat Rescue's right down the street.
Where are you gonna even get an actual tape recorder with the tape in it?
Oh, I was gonna say Radio Shack, but they're dead too.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
Probably online. I know they still have them.
Okay. All right.
Gleeboot.
So welcome back to Gleeboot, the show where we get drunk and talk about rebooting Glee one episode at a time. I'm Cullen.
Allyssa.
And I'm Hannah.
And today we have a special guest and the smartest person I know, Ceci.
Hi.
Welcome.
That's me.
Yay.
Thanks.
We brought her on to discuss a very exciting episode. So, Ceci, what is your relationship with the show Glee?
I watched my first episode today. It was season 3, episode 12. So I've never seen Glee before. I also, I knew about it, as everyone does, I think. I feel like I've kind of conflated Degrassi and Glee, in my head of, the, high school drama shows that, I was afraid to watch because I was afraid of high school drama in real life. I was like, I'm not going to watch it on TV. So I never watched an episode, but I do feel like I did know about Santana as a character, whether from commercials or what it was. But yeah, that's my relationship.
Nice.
So completely fresh eyes.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I apologize.
That's all right. No, this has been thrilling. I'm really...
At least we'll have stuff to talk about because there have been some episodes that are just so boring. We talk about everything but the episode. So at least we get to talk about the episode with you.
Yeah. Cullen, I don't know if you want to explain why you feel like I was useful to have as a guest for this episode, maybe.
Well, Ceci is of Mexican heritage. Her mother is from Mexico.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And academically, I study Mexican literature and Latinx culture stuff. And I'm a translator from Spanish to English. So it's been it was fascinating to see what was going on in this episode.
Yeah.
When Shu
awesome.
was translating with his
dictionary,
I was
much
like,
to say.
This is what Ceci does, right?
Yeah, that is exactly what I do. I was like, how dare he take my career and make it look so glamorous.
And boil it down to just that.
Yeah. That was thrilling.
Yeah, so I basically looked at this episode and I'm like, this episode is going to be very offensive and we need someone who appreciates how offensive it is.
Appreciates how offensive it is.
A full appreciation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what are we drinking today?
I'm drinking, this is a Malbec from Argentina. It's called Santa Julia, and it's very, very good.
Nice.
It's a drier red.
I need to start drinking more foreign wines so they don't have as much of the thing in it that starts with a P.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I've never heard of this. I love a Malbec though.
Prosecco?
No.
That's what I got.
Wine connoisseur, Cullen.
So much Prosecco and every other type of wine.
It'll come to me. I think it starts with a P. Anyway, I'm drinking water and eating candy. Because,
what kind of candy?
Okay, so I've had, so far, this is my candy wrapper sound.
Some ASMR for you.
Yes. Okay. Werther's Original, which is
like a butterscotch?
Yeah, the hard caramel or butterscotch candies. Yeah. I got some mint truffle kisses and Lindor chocolate.
Ooh.
Lindor chocolate thingies.
Indoor chocolate truffles. Those are so good.
They are, and they're huge. And I think I'm gonna stick with the caramels because they taste really good and they last a while, so you're not like dying from eating too much chocolate.
Impossible. Too much chocolate. What is that?
I'm drinking a Stella Artois, just like I was last week, which was Friday.
I'm drinking a Fat Tire. I don't know what the beer is. It's probably just whatever Fat Tire is like.
Yeah, it's an amber ale.
Oh, I thought Fat Tire was the brewery. Isn't it?
No, that's New Belgium, I think is the brewery. Fat Tire's the type, and it's an amber ale. That's one of my favorite beers, actually.
I love an amber or like a blonde ale.
Yeah, for sure.
Fat Tire's good.
Yeah.
We need to get more beers. Different types. I want to try them all. Except
I should send you guys a Florida beer.
Are you in Florida?
Yeah, I live in Tampa.
Cool.
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Can you send beers?
Yeah, I can order it online
just
and have it sent to your house.
Oh, cool.
You guys should try Texas Red. That's a good if you're into ambers. That's a good Texas beer.
Ooh, Texas Red.
We should send each other alcohol. That should be a thing.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, and we can like unbox it and look at it during the episode and be like, "Oh my, no, that's a terrible idea. We need to chill it."
We can put it on the unboxing on TikTok.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Is there a Gleeboot? I can't even say that. Is that a tongue twister? Gleeboot TikTok. Why can't I say that?
There is a Gleeboot TikTok.
Cool.
Gleeboot Pod.
I don't have a TikTok, so I'm not going to look at it. I'm sorry. I don't know why I asked.
I don't have a TikTok either. That's all Cullen. I have seen some of them, though. I almost did a TikTok about a segment that I took a video of and sent to you guys, and my roommate Ginger wants me to record my face, and so she can make a TikTok out of it. So I'll probably make it and send it to you and see what you think. So...
Yes.
But we'll talk about that part.
Oh, we will.
I got like 3 lines on it of just being like, ask what?
So, Sassy, did you take the BuzzFeed quizzes?
Yes, I did. So the reason I would like to talk about this is not because the results so much as the pairing of the results. My boyfriend from Glee is Finn Hudson. The Glee character I am is Finn Hudson.
You're just like Cullen, you're dating yourself.
Wait, is that happening to you, Cullen?
Yeah, I'm Blaine and I'm dating Blaine.
That's great. Okay, that makes me feel better because Cullen's like a ray of sunshine, as you guys know. So I feel like if something happened to him that happened to me, it can't be so bad.
It's also BuzzFeed, and you know, while I do let them tell me who I am in a lot of ways, I feel like the person I got for who I dated, I'm very offended, and I stand by that it's not. I got Artie, and you might not know quite how bad he is.
Was he in this episode?
He was.
He was
briefly.
Yeah.
Did he have like a storyline?
He was in the very first number. He's the one in the wheelchair.
Okay.
He was really going at it for La Cucaracha.
Yeah, he was in Ricky Martin's number too.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about Finn Hudson to know. Like, I know he lifts weights and is down on himself, is what I learned from today's episode. He needs to
He
believe.
lifts, but he can't lift himself up.
Ooh,
nailed it.
Yes, that's great. That's a tagline for him.
Yeah, I need to drink wine more often during this. That was really witty.
But yeah, so those were my results.
Very nice. We love a BuzzFeed quiz here on Gleeboot.
Yes.
So without further ado, let's talk about season 3, episode 11, The Spanish Teacher.
I want you all to know that I threw up during this episode.
She did.
Because of the episode?
Wow.
Or, okay, unrelated but still
Yes.
happened. Got it.
At what point in the episode? Can you tell us when we get to
Yes.
it?
We will take a
You're
detour.
like, and that's where I threw up.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
Was it too much candy?
No. It was
Okay.
because I had really bad period cramps.
Oh, yeah, been there before.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was sucky.
And Glee made it worse.
You have no idea. I was about to smack the shit out of Kurt.
I wanted to smack a lot of people in this episode.
But specifically when Kurt was like, our periods don't come until the end of the month. I was like,
oh
fuck you.
my god.
I
I lost my mind at that too. I paused a lot during this episode, so it took me way too long to watch.
So there's only 3 main storylines. There's like the 10-year / Human Nightmare Will Schuester storyline. There's Rachel and Finn, and then there's some Sam Sadie's. So let's talk about the opening of the episode. Horrific. Speaking of Human Nightmare Will Schuester, that lives in my nightmares. He's like, La Cucaracha! And they sing La Cucaracha. And
Was
Yeah,
that
they do.
Spanish class or Glee Club? Like which?
that was Spanish
one?
class.
Spanish class.
Okay.
Yeah.
He does it annually on Taco Tuesday.
That's right.
Which
That's right.
me-
Yeah.
Yeah. That was.
It's a lot. The Cucaracha lyrics that I'm familiar with are not the ones that he was saying. I feel like
Oh,
like,
interesting.
only just like one line. It's like La Cucaracha. Oh, he said no tiene marihuana para fumar, like doesn't have marijuana to smoke, I think. And the lyric I know is La Cucaracha, ya no puede caminar, can't walk anymore, because like the cucaracha's been stepped on a little, so it's like, you know, when a cockroach is like half alive.
Interesting.
So like I was like, oh, we're adding drugs like,
That's
to
really
this
interesting.
stereotype. I mean, maybe there's another version. There could be another version that I'm just not aware of, but like, or maybe
Yeah.
it's a different verse that I don't know about. But when I heard that, I was like, oh.
Yeah, actually for a very split second, like my boyfriend had the closed captioning on, and so like I went to turn it off, but it was still on, and I saw Caminar on there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess like, yeah, maybe the closed captions were for that version.
Maybe
Because I was
maybe it was
like-
another verse that I just don't know about, but I was like shook by it a little.
That's so weird. Yeah, I didn't even catch it. I was literally, my brain just went. I was like, what's happening?
Yeah. But to be fair, like the cringiness is deliberate and it's addressed.
Yeah, and like the audacity of him to be like, I'm so out of touch, and I'm like, you're just realizing this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a tradition that I realize now isn't working today. Like not like in the
Yeah.
past.
And I was like, this can't be the first time those like his students have looked at him like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no way. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the first.
First frame.
45
for
seconds.
45 seconds, yeah. So then Will is called into Figgins' office because he's received some complaints about his teaching style. And there's an open tenure position at the school, and Will really wants a tenure position, but Figgins is considering a few candidates, and Will has to brush up his Spanish to be considered eligible.
So quickly, why is there a new tenure position, Cullen?
Because the history teacher had some memory problems. So she thinks that the Nazis
that's
won
right.
World War II.
I blocked that out.
I screamed and paused and wrote notes. I paused so much during the first 10 minutes. Also, my Roku on my TV just like didn't want to work, so I had to watch on my laptop, but it literally could not get through La Cucaracha. Like, I think my Roku was trying to save me. Like, you don't want to watch this.
So there was a line, I wrote it down because I was also shook by it. you're a Spanish teacher. Maybe you should try learning Spanish. And I know it's like funny, but also you hiring him. Like, what?
Yeah. And then it goes like that kind of comes up later when he takes a different position. I'm like, how are you qualified for like
Right.
Can you be a teacher?
You have to be like certified in certain things to teach high school. You have to be certified in certain subjects in order to teach those subjects. So you can't just
you have to take a really hard test to do it.
Yeah.
Question though, like what is tenure? I thought that was something that was like only for college, or is that?
Yeah, so I know it to be a university thing, but my roommate is a teacher at middle school, and she talks about professional teacher status. Like at some point you reached that, and then it's kind of like tenure in public schools. So I was thinking like they were just using the word tenure maybe because it makes more sense. But I had a similar thing where I was like, what? Like,
yeah, I also was like suspension of disbelief, but that's a good point. Like, I wonder if it's the writers didn't know if tenure actually existed in high schools. And they're like, what is that called? It doesn't matter. We're just going to call it tenure.
I can see that happening.
Yeah.
Well, like they even did that whole thing where they were like, call me professor.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense. I don't know anyone who's done that in high school. Like, you just call them Mr., Mrs., or Ms. or whatever. Very strange.
Yeah, so Will wants a new tenure because he wants to start a family with Emma. Because they got engaged. So then...
Well, that's what he says. I don't believe him.
That's valid though. Like there's a lot of off-camera stuff like we don't know.
To be honest, I feel like he's just a broken pride man.
Yeah.
I feel like that about sums it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, he's told to go actually learn the language he's supposed to be teaching these students, which we've always joked throughout this podcast that like he only knows a few words in Spanish. I literally wrote that down. And I'm like,
in all caps, I was like, I told you guys he didn't speak Spanish. And I don't even remember this episode. So like I felt so vindicated. I was like, I knew it.
I knew this episode was coming the whole time, and each time we joked about it, I was like, just you wait. Just you wait.
Well, he speaks Spanish after Ricky Martin intervenes.
Oh, yeah.
Dreamy Ricky Martin with his tooth model teeth. So he goes to night school, and he's being taught by Ricky Martin or David Martinez in the show. And people are saying they want to learn Spanish because of telling their maid not to use their toilet. So just love that little spicy little racist stereotype we just gotta pound in.
But like, I feel like, again, it's like obvious that's an unlikable woman, I think. Like, I don't think it's like, we're all like, oh yeah, take that, maid. You know, we're all like, oh, this lady sucks. And like, this is why she came. So like, again, I feel like the cringiness is like deliberate and thoughtful almost. Or like, not quite thoughtful, but you know.
Yeah, it's definitely tongue-in-cheek. We're like, we're in on the joke. I just love that the guy after her was like, what does gordita mean? And I'm like, did someone call him that? Or does he want to know what a cheesy gordita crunch is?
It's just, Glee does this thing all the time where they think they can get away with racist jokes as long as they're like, that's racist.
Yeah.
And so...
At which point it's like, it's not original. It's just like, you're just using the same jokes, but like shaping it a little different.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those lines where they just always toe or step over it, and we're like, I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah, but it is. But you are valid that it is. They are pointing out that people are in the class are like unlikable or like ignorant.
Yeah.
Ooh, is there a drag race happening outside?
I don't think that's me.
That's
No,
me.
it's us.
No, it's definitely
okay.
Cullen and Allyssa.
Yeah.
We get some interesting drivers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like David Martinez's face, like he just like kind of like laughed. He's like, okay, I know, I've been here before, which kind of made me sad, but it did make me laugh.
Like, I know it's a scene, whatever, like your scenes can't last too long, but I was very confused because he like was like, no, we're all here for a reason, and then what did he just spoke to them in Spanish really quickly, and everyone was confused, and he was like, great class, and I was like, what kind of language instruction is this?
Yeah, like this class is so short. It's like you taught them 10 words max and they don't know what they mean, and that's it.
Right. He like introduced himself, said like, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to speak a sentence of Spanish and you're going to leave.
Yeah. It makes you think about like, okay, if that was the whole class, so class is probably at least 40 minutes. And we literally do see them introduce themselves, and then he does that, and then they're dismissed, right? That's the scene.
Yeah.
So like, what did they do in like the 38 minutes before that? They just sat there in silence.
Yeah.
Or that old lady was like, this is why my maid can't use the toilet.
True. Or Ricky Martin was flossing.
Yeah.
And he was like,
maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, would a person that racist actually go to learn Spanish to tell her maid not to use the toilet?
That is an excellent question.
I don't think anyone has an answer.
The answer
I mean,
to
if
that
she's
is
that adamant about her
America.
toilet.
I like doubt she would. I think she would probably like hire a Spanish speaking like other maid to tell the maid, and like, you know what I mean?
Or like she would just Google translate it and it would come out garbled, but like she might get the point across. So yeah, I think they just wanted that in there for the sake of it being in there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's to show that Will is better than these people.
Oh, no.
Yeah, at least he's not being like, well, my maid is using my toilet. He's like, I'm a Spanish teacher and I should know how to speak this language, but I don't.
But also, like, he was like, I'm going to, like, lay out the stakes of this episode real quick. If I can teach my students to sing a song in Spanish by the end of the week, I will get the job. He's like, let me tell you.
You're doing the bare minimum of your job? That's not going to get you tenure. How dare you? That's some white male privilege right there. He's like, I can do the bare minimum and get this coveted spot.
Figgins apparently isn't about that, despite being the worst principal in every other episode.
How long has he been teaching Spanish? Did it ever say?
We'd have to like go back to other episodes when it says how long he'd been teaching there. I would say probably at least 5 years.
And he didn't think it was necessary to actually learn how to speak Spanish in order to teach it in this entire time.
Unless he was faking it until he made it.
So
Yeah.
Never
Or he took the base test that a foreign language teacher needs to take and he passed it and then forgot everything he learned immediately.
that happens if you don't like try and keep abreast.
Yeah, I feel like his passion is what I get from this one episode is supervising the Glee Club and not doing his job, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Which won't pay, which is not why he needs to become a history teacher, which he may or may not be qualified for either.
Yeah. Just anyone can teach history, apparently.
Yeah.
You just read dates from a book, no analysis.
As long as you know that the Nazis did not win World War II.
You're basically
it's a step
qualified.
up from the last one.
Yeah. So David Martinez talks about how by 2030, like there'll be more Americans speaking Spanish than any other language, and he talked about your dentist will probably be speaking Spanish. So he recites like, "Hello, doctor. Do you take my insurance for my teeth cleaning?" in Spanish, and just has them repeat that without explaining it.
We are less than 10 years away from 2030. Who thinks that the majority of Americans will be speaking Spanish as the first language? I don't know.
Was that the stat? Was it as a first language or was it?
It was as a first language. Because
Yeah,
I remember
I wrote
thinking, well, oh, okay.
This was in 2012. This episode came out, right? 2012, 2011. I mean, yeah, we could definitely pull those stats and see what the projection is now. But like, I believe that then they may have believed that.
Yeah, I've heard stats similar to that, though not the first language bit, but like,
yeah,
the majority of Americans will speak Spanish or like whatever. Not necessarily that year. But.
right.
I could see it as majority of Americans as the second language or first, like just will speak.
Right, and the U.S. still has like the second greatest number of Spanish speakers in the world behind Mexico, just because we have such a huge population. So like, even though everybody in Spain, well, not everybody, but most people in Spain speak Spanish, like we still have more Spanish speakers in the U.S.
Yeah.
So.
Hey listeners, Hannah here. I just did some fact-checking on Ricky Martin's character's projection for the number of native Spanish speakers in the U.S. He said in the show that the majority of the U.S. will be speaking Spanish as their first language by the year 2030. But according to a PolitiFact.com article published in 2012, just days after this episode aired, reporter Amy Sherman reveals that this data the Glee character quote-unquote cites is actually false. She ran the data past the U.S. Census Bureau, which was the source that David Martinez, Ricky Martin's character, actually cited. And the Census Bureau actually said they don't even do projections for languages spoken. Quote, "That's very strange someone would cite us," end quote. The Census Bureau does, and did in 2008, based on the 2000 census, project the number and percentage of Hispanic citizens in the U.S. Quote, "The census projected that by 2030, there will be about 85.9 million Hispanics out of about 373.5 million people in the U.S., representing about 23% of the population," Sherman reports. On the other hand, she did actually review the American Community Survey, which is a subset of the Census Bureau that does track community characteristics like languages spoken. Quote, "For 2010, the survey showed about 37 million of 289 million people over the age of 5 spoke Spanish, or about 13%. It doesn't ask respondents what their first language is, but asks what they speak at home and how well they speak English. And those Spanish speakers include both Hispanics and non-Hispanics." Finally, Sherman's reporting led her to a 2011 Census Bureau project that tried to make language projections, but it ended up confirming that only about 13.5 to 15% of the 5 and older population was likely to speak Spanish by 2020, the last year calculated in that report. That's, quote, "nowhere close to a majority of Americans speaking Spanish as their first language," Sherman wrote. The professionals who compiled the 2011 language projection report stated, quote, "That is just blatantly wrong. We don't have anything that can support that," end quote. But for now, some more recent numbers. According to Statista.com, the demographics for languages spoken at home other than English by number of speakers in 2019 for Spanish specifically are 41,757,391. But it doesn't seem that this data actually specifies whether or not it's their first language. But with this 41 million speaker number divided by the 2019 population of the US, which was 328.2 million, I calculated about a 12.7%, which is almost that 13% projected in the 2011 report. So yeah, this statistic about it being the majority of the United States seemed to be pretty far off. Just wanted to clear that up. Back to the show.
I think our the amount of people that speak second languages, though, is the least percentage-wise in the world.
Right.
That sounds real, yeah.
Yep, that sounds very real.
Yeah.
I don't speak a second language.
Neither do I.
Me either.
And I really want to.
I have a friend who just speaks Spanish, and we would use Google Translate to communicate with each other.
That's really sweet in some way.
Yeah.
But then I would like slip into French, because sometimes French words would sound similar enough to the Spanish words.
I would do the same thing with Italian.
But I would say we, and then eventually he started saying we, and then I was like, oh no, am I teaching him bad English? Because now he's going to think we means yes.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I'm also an uncultured American. But I have a Glee podcast, so I'm a little cultured.
Yeah, it counts.
I love that.
So as we talked about, Will asked David Martinez out for a coffee, and then they're talking about his past as a tooth model and how his passion was teaching kids and how there's no open positions. And Will is like, I'm holding that open position, but
Someone who can't speak Spanish. I didn't even think about that till now. That's
like, he's just smiling with his tooth model grin, but I feel like inside he's like, this fucker is
like,
the reason I can't have a job.
Yeah, he's like, why don't we go to the staircase so I can shove you down it? Like, why don't we go this way?
That actually happened in Glee once.
Oh, really? Nice.
Sue did it. She knocked the school nurse
I
down.
love Sue. I gotta say, she is so chaotic.
This is the first time we've seen her in a while, too.
Yeah. So then Will is like, or David Martinez talks about learning Spanish from watching TV and watching people sing. He talks about how singing teaches people faster. And so Will is like, if I get my kids singing in Spanish by the end of the week, I'll get tenure.
Is that true? The singing thing?
That song.
I know TV,
I mean,
obviously when you hear things, immersion is useful.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if singing would actually help.
Like Schoolhouse Rock, Conjunction Junction.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's like another teaching method that's like seen to be effective. I don't know whether it's like better than all the others, but you know.
It's one of
People
the
have
most
different
effective
learning styles, you know.
Yeah.
I never really liked learning with songs, so maybe that's just me. Which is odd, because I like songs and singing, but I just didn't like learning with songs.
Sometimes I still sing the Schoolhouse Rock multiplication songs when I'm like multiplying things. In my head, I'm just like, okay. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. And I like go through like
Wow.
That's
wait,
great.
so when he says that, I thought he meant if I get my Spanish class singing in Spanish. But then he goes to the Glee Club and makes them sing.
Oh my God, yeah.
He's still teaching Spanish to Spanish students.
Oh my God, that's so true. I didn't even think about that. No wonder he didn't get the tenure. Oh my God, he didn't. Oh my God.
He went to the wrong class.
That's so funny.
I didn't even notice.
I didn't either.
Yeah. His plan was never very strong.
They never really are.
Meanwhile, Sue is talking to the male Glee Club members about donating their sperm to the sperm bank.
So that's number one really inappropriate thing that occurs in the school this episode.
Seriously,
I'm keeping
freaks
account.
out.
Yeah, and the way she's sitting too, like during that scene,
She's
like
like a
straddling
cool
the chair,
teacher.
like
Yeah.
it's too much.
It was-
I wrote, "What is Jane Lynch doing?" down.
I'm also curious as to why we find out that, the reason she actually wants them to go forth and share their seed is because she wants seed. And I'm like, you want these teenagers' DNA with your child? Like, why? What makes any of them ready for that? That was deeply, deeply disturbing to me.
And she said she doesn't want...
She should have gone to the male teachers in the school.
Wow.
That's also appropriate, yes.
Yeah, also super appropriate.
Because she says
better.
She says to Artie that she doesn't want his sperm, and he's like, I got in an accident, and she's like, still. And then Kurt, or Porcelain, the strangeness ends with you.
But then, like, what about Puck? He went to juvie. He's an all-around bad person.
Yeah, to me, it would make more sense if she went to, like, say Sam and was like, I want a beautiful, square-jawed child.
With luscious, trouty mouth lips.
Gross. But
it's all gross. No matter what she does, it's gross.
That's all, yes. And the whole reason she wants the kids to do this is because she didn't like the options
at the sperm bank.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess okay, go to a different sperm bank.
Yeah. Anyway, the amount that we're probably gonna have to say sperm is I'm so sorry.
I have no idea how that works anyway. Because we were like, Hannah, you were like saying that they had to be ready for this. Would they then be notified?
Well, not necessarily, but the fact that like they know that they're donating their sperm for this purpose, like I feel like a teenager probably isn't ready for that experience. I'm sure there are some who do, but like why would she ask them to go forth with that like very mature thing?
Mm-mm.
She's basically talking to them about masturbation for money, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah. So then she brings Will is like, that's inappropriate, and she brings him into the office and is like, I'm having a baby, and he's like laughs, and she's like, no, I'm serious. I had my eggs frozen in the 70s. He's like, they didn't have that technology then. She's like, I put them in they're being stored in the meat locker of the good people at Kroger.
That makes me, I laughed really hard because like I thought about like, okay, maybe they're the same people since the 70s, but also like when the new person comes in, they're like, what's this? And I'm like, don't ask about it. Like,
well, like the trouble, like the part that Will's pointing out that they didn't have these procedures back then isn't they didn't have storage. Like it's not like they didn't know where to put it. It's like they didn't know how to get them out. Like the problem isn't finding a freezer. I was very confused about how she managed that.
Oh god.
Like I understand that she's old, but she could still have a baby. Like
there was a lot of older women having babies in this episode, and I'm like, she was probably late 40s when this came out, and people like there are plenty of people who still have babies then, even without having their eggs frozen and being inseminated. Like it also can happen naturally too, or biologically.
This is Hollywood. A woman over 40 needs to retire and work in the Hallmark Channel.
You're right. As the great grandma character.
Yeah, I feel like everybody kept being like, with whose vagina, but I was like, nobody's been like, oh, I hope you're doing it safely, because like the problem is like the risk of the pregnancy is
yeah, exactly.
Like nobody's like nice about it. Like
everyone's like, haha, yeah, right. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's valid. Like you should really be asking, oh, like, are you worried about the actual safety of yourself and your child? Like stuff like that. Yeah. Nope, she's just old and her vagina and her tits are all dried up,
Yeah, we'll get to that. So meanwhile, she offers Will a cup and is like, donate your sperm to my baby so I can have a baby, just casually. Like it's treated like a punchline, and then it's brought up for serious later.
Because she literally is like, I'm afraid of bald children. And she's like, I want my child to have a full head of hair. And I'm like, okay.
That's the thing, like all of her lines are so chaotic. I loved it.
He looks like he's considering it in that like little shot right before they cut. And I'm like, no, don't consider it. What are you doing?
And then Becky summons Sue to Figgins' office. And then in the office, it's revealed that there's been a complaint about her coaching style, and they brought in Olympian Coach Roz Washington, Nene Leakes, to help kind of modernize the Cheerios a bit, because she's like, they're still doing the same outdated white bread routines from the 50s.
Just a question. She's the one that did synchronized swimming, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Does no one else find it ironic that the synchronized swimmer is updating the Cheerios performance?
Because synchronized swimming is old school.
Yeah.
I think it could be because she's Black and they're just assigning her to have like known the culture of how to improve things. Dance wise. That's what I think.
I see. So it has nothing to do with the fact that she's a bronze medalist that, like won synchronized swimming of all things.
Yes.
Okay. I can see where this is going.
Because that's the only, because like I didn't even think about that. I just thought, oh, she's an Olympian. But yeah, no, like you make a good point. She does something that there's really only so much you can do in the water. So there's a lot of reused things. And, if you think about what she says, basically like, I mean, she basically is like, we're going to basically get their booties moving. And I'm like, that's kind of what I think.
Well, so I don't know Sue's background, but it seems like she's won trophies for something, right?
Great point.
So I thought the Olympian thing was like, okay, you thought you were a big athlete, but like you don't have an Olympic medal. I thought it was like some sort of counterpoint of just like, you're not as good as her.
I think there was that too. Yeah.
I think also the Cheerios only lost 1 year.
Yeah, they won they lost.
And they lost because she bullied her Cheerios and they quit, right? Wasn't that what happened?
Yeah, because she made them choose between Glee Club and Cheerios, and they chose Glee Club.
So that's a whole teaching thing that has nothing to do with the routine, so it's a moot point.
So this entire storyline just didn't really make sense.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, cool.
Nailed it.
We got that taken care of.
Next scene.
So the next scene, Will's in the Glee Club, and he's like, what are you doing in the year 2030? Where do you see yourselves? And Kurt and Rachel are both like, Broadway, twinsies. And then Puck says, dead or in jail or both. Which
happened.
This reference is particularly, I don't know what the word is for it, disturbing maybe, because of what happened to the actual actor. We have to repeat this a lot on the podcast, and I hate that. He was arrested for child pornography and then committed suicide. And so that reference just... that was the sound I made when that happened.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yikes. Everybody drank a lot. Yeah.
And then he's like, we're gonna do music by Latin people because I love Latin music and I love Latin culture.
Santana should have been like, oh, really? Named one Latin person, you know.
Well, she's basically said, like, you know any Latin people? And then he's like, I do. Yeah. Here's my nice.
And then David shows up. Yeah.
She should have made him list Latin artists that he knows.
Okay, we'll get to this, I'm sure, but Santana chose a Madonna song, so like,
yes,
for her authentic performance.
So he actually makes the note that we're gonna do them only by Latin artists, or that are, I guess, Latin inspired. What does he say? Or have like Latin, have like Spanish music.
Yeah.
I guess, lyrics. I guess that's fine. But the Presley and the Madonna combo, I was like,
they definitely, I think they had to work backwards from like the music they picked. And then they're like, oh, we have to make this addendum in his speech. Otherwise, people are going to come after us.
Yeah,
I bet you that's what happened. No, that's a really good point. Because I noticed, I was like, wait, Madonna's Italian. So I had to triple check it. I was like, I don't think she's Spanish. She's not.
In the Gleeboot, he'll cover Ariana Grande because of her brown face. And people will be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But
Was
yeah.
there any actual authentic song?
Yeah, they did the Enrique Iglesias and the Gypsy Kings.
Which one is that?
That's one that Sam
combo,
does.
Bamboleo and Hero. Yeah.
With the shoes.
And then also the one before that was a Gloria Estefan song.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
shoes.
Mercedes.
Yeah, the shoes kind of are in the moment.
Also, I love Santana's line. She's like, I love that we want to get all Lima Sound Machine on here. I was like, oh, I get that joke. That's a good joke. Because it's in reference to Miami Sound Machine.
Oh,
Gloria Estefan. Yeah, I was like, that's a good one. That was my one clever joke that I'll give Glee. Just one each episode. That's what they get.
Yeah, but I just love, because we know he doesn't know other adults because Finn is his best man in his upcoming wedding.
He literally did the equivalent of, yeah, I have black friends. And he kicked his leg really weird too when he was like, I love Latin culture. I was like, please don't kick your leg like that. That's a giveaway that you don't.
Yeah.
Alyssa, your face is totally disturbed.
I don't even remember
what?
what happened. I don't remember that.
His little kick. He's like, I love Latin people. I love Latin
He's like moving
food.
his shoulders a lot.
I love Latin
wow,
culture.
I don't remember any of this body language.
It was bad.
It was peak cringe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and so David Martinez enters, and they're talking about putting duende into your music.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So when he was talking to David about, his passions and also like why he's teaching Spanish, he like mentions duende, and Shu pretends he knows what it means, and then he comes to the scene clearly having tried to look it up, and I was like, this is really embarrassing.
Okay, but I don't understand, because so what Santana said is like what I know duende to mean. It means like a little dwarfish, elvish, like magical creature. And I was like, well, because Ricky Martin's Puerto Rican, although he's Chilean in this storyline, but I was like, maybe it's like a Puerto Rican thing that I don't know. Like my understanding of duende is different than his. But but then Santana was like, it means dwarf. And I was like, yeah. And then they never let Ricky Martin, I keep calling him that, I'm sorry. They never let Ricky Martin explain it. And I think that it might have been a dwarf thing that we never got to hear about. I don't think it means
interesting.
So that's kind of what I was getting, that Shu didn't understand the word at all and was using it out of context. And then the Ricky Martin character just kind of was like, oh, I can't point that out in front of the class you're trying to teach, so I'm just gonna go with it.
I mean, it sounds like Ricky Martin's little story about one that probably like you need context to understand why you think you need magical dwarf.
It comes from it's to have duende, so basically a heightened state of emotion, expression, or authenticity, often connected with flamenco dance, which is interesting. But but it's just like he was clearly using it wrong when they were first talking, and then he clearly dictionary.com'd it or something when he went to go present to the class, and I'm like, ugh, cringe.
He's like, it's like singing with Spanish passion.
Yeah, and then Ricky Martin's like, no. But he was nice about it.
It reminded me, this is less cringy, but have you guys seen Mozart in the Jungle?
No, I haven't.
Holy shit, it's a very good show. Well,
I think I've seen
there's a character who's always talking about singing with the blood, and he's a Mexican character, but he's always talking about how you have to sing with the blood, and I felt like that's what they were trying to do with Duende.
And so so Santana's like, well, why don't you show us? and he chooses the ultimate song of Latinx representation. I'm sexy and I know it.
Right.
It really is. It's not even just like that expression. It's the expression of like authenticity, like that definition I just gave you. Like now that I read that, he's literally just like bragging about how hot he is and he knows he's hot. It's literally the duende thing. It has really nothing to do with the main point of Shu's lesson. So it kind of defeats the purpose.
I love how he sprinkled like 5 Spanish words into it.
Yeah, honestly, I would have preferred
like, wait a second, he's a Spanish teacher. Like,
yeah.
And
Will
also
should have pulled out his little dictionary and helped him throw
like,
some more in there.
What does that mean?
Singing this to a bunch of high school students too.
Again, yes, just like what's her name? Goop.
Mm-hmm.
Goop did that too. What's her name? Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah.
I almost called her Gwen Stefani.
That's the Glee
Gwyneth
boot.
Paltrow. She came in and sang a horribly inappropriate song. And this is also pretty inappropriate to be singing to children. Because when he walks in, I love Quinn. She was literally holding on to Sugar, who's in this episode.
She wasn't in last week. She was here though.
Sugar and Brittany's knees, like holding on for dear life when he walked in because he's so hot. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of like the hot dentist thing too. Like,
yeah, it's weird because like his personality was like kind of portrayed to us as like he's hot, but like he wants more and he's deeper than that and he wants to teach. But then he was like, "Let me tell you about me. I'm sexy." Like this is my intro.
Why are all of the like guest hot guys somehow related to good teeth?
I don't know.
That's a good question.
Incident?
We'll actually have to revisit that question in the Big Brother episode.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Yeah.
What?
We'll meet a new character who's a guest, like you're saying, and we'll have to rate his teeth. I
can just see someone like on a blog right now. Ryan Murphy has a tooth fetish.
So he sings "I'm Sexy and I Know It," and then he sings a Spanish version. Is that "I'm Sexy and You Know It" how he said it, or is it still "I'm Sexy and I Know It"?
I didn't hear like any Spanish.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sure there was some Spanish, but like I didn't hear it in the song.
It was
he says,
I had the subtitles on. There were there was definitely Spanish, but
I think
don't know Spanish. So.
"Soy sexy y lo sabes."
Yeah, that means "and you know it."
Yeah, so I'm like, if that's what he says, so he does both. He's like, I know it
more
and you know it.
Exactly.
That's what I thought. But honestly, it's a way better version than the original. I'll say it right now.
I agree with that.
Also, so this was like my first, like, other than the cucaracha, this is my first like musical moment from Glee.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, where did the backing track come from? And then I was like, oh, it's a musical.
Yeah, that's also a great question because they have a band there, but you're like, where's
How'd
that
they know the
electronic
song?
stuff
They
happening?
prepared it. They knew.
And then Finn, in the middle of the performance, puts a face on a box and puts the box over the keyboard.
That was something we're supposed to look up.
Was that something from LMFAO's like music video?
I think so.
Because for a second I was like, Marshmallow? No.
I thought it was Daft Punk for a second, but I was like, no. I don't know. I don't see anything obvious on this, so I don't care enough. That was a fact checking.
It happened for a reason. Maybe not. We don't know.
At first I thought he was putting a box on Shu's head to be like, you're ugly. Here's our new sexy teacher.
I would have loved that.
That's in the Gleeboot.
We have chosen our new teacher. Both our new Spanish teacher and our new Glee teacher.
So then, do you have anything else to say about "I'm Sexy and I Know It"?
He didn't he finish the scene saying mucho bueno? And I was like, did he really fuck that up? Like, you teach at least Spanish, like you learned that in at least Spanish 1. Like,
well, I feel like that was like a running thing throughout though, because then like the next scene he says muy something, and then Santana like makes fun of him and says muy, like she was like, oh, you learned a word. So I feel like muy. His like discover the word muy is like part of his arc.
I was like, if you have taught, like, even if you're teaching Spanish, you should have at least learned that phrase and correctly, I would think. Like, it's so elementary. I lost my mind. Oh.
I want you all to know I know no Spanish. Like, none.
You took French, only French in high school?
I took French and then proceeded to be obsessed with Asian cultures. So I know very, very tiny bits of like
Korean
Japanese,
and stuff.
Korean, and Hindi.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really because I don't know the language.
Yeah.
But I feel like having tiny bits of any language is like a cool entryway. Like I like the reason I haven't learned a third language is because I'm like so afraid, because like I grew up bilingual, so I'm like I've never had to learn a language, and it sounds really hard. And I want to do it, but I know it's gonna be a huge time investment. You know, like it's taken my whole life to be bilingual. So like, yeah, I mean, language learning is wild.
I can say like key phrases like "Hello, my name is," and "Where's the bathroom" in like Spanish and Italian. That's pretty much it.
I can say my name is Ceci in Japanese, but I think that, like, I think I learned a little kid version of it. Like, I am little girl Ceci, kind of. So I think I've grown out of the Japanese I
know. So next we have a performance of the Cheerios, and they're shaking their booties. With Coach Roz's new dance performances, and Santana and Becky are just watching. They're not performing with the Cheerios, but they seem to like it. And then Coach Roz tells them to go find some small pools to dip their donkey butts in.
I don't even know. Like, that's like a Beast level line. Like Coach Beast level line right there.
And then
I'm just imagining Beast saying it.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like they would get along.
Yeah.
And then Roz and Sue kind of have this confrontation where Sue's like, "You're coming after my job right when I'm about to have a baby." And Roz is like, "You are as old as the hills," which I say all the time now because of that. Whenever I turn an age, I'm like, I'm as old as the hills.
I love that. This whole confrontation I loved. I love the fact that Roz wears her Olympic medal everywhere. Like, I'm so here for that. I love the two of them facing off. It was like so ridiculous.
I don't think it's clear in this episode. It's from a previous episode, but she won it for individual synchronized swimming, which like definitely isn't a thing.
Yeah.
But that's what she won it for, just in case you wanted to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're talking about, she's like, "You're gonna have a grandchild. You're gonna have a baby, and a dog's gonna come out with a briefcase and a job."
I didn't want to laugh because like it is what we were talking about, like so like anti older women having babies, but it was just so weird and funny.
That was a good line. I laughed out loud.
The whole confrontation was hilarious.
I can't believe they didn't mention like a Benjamin Button in that.
Oh yeah.
Had Benjamin Button come out? I think so.
Look first.
Yeah. Short story.
Yeah, they should have mentioned Benjamin Button in that.
And then she talks about, "I hope your baby eats sand, because that's all that's coming out of you."
Yeah, that line wasn't as good as the whole adult coming out of you line.
Yeah.
The adult coming out of you, that was the epitome of the hilarity.
With a briefcase.
Yes.
With a briefcase and a job.
Yep. And then the humor kind of goes down from there, and it just sounds like she's spewing insults.
Yeah, I think it should have ended after that line because it just went on too long, and I think we just kind of got bored of it and we're like, okay, now this is just like really, I don't love it.
And then Sue is like, no one comes in between me and my family. So then we're back at the Glee Club, and we have Sam and the boys singing a mashup of Bumbaleo and Hero with these pointy shoes.
I think pointy is an understatement.
Yeah, I agree. That is an understatement.
So these shoes are like a real thing, but not like, these are like a weird cheap version of them. Like pointy cowboy boots that slope up, or it's like a certain type of like Mexican guy will wear them. Like it's kind of like, you know how we have like preps and nerds and jocks and like all of that stuff. It's like one of those like fashion categories. But those shoes are like very like weird plastic like Party City version of them. like Which and then matched with the bolo ties, they will be quite long. Those were weird though, because they like kind of came to a square and like kept going. It was strange, but yeah, the whole costume thing was kind of like an attempt was made, I think. But the bolo ties and those shoes, and I don't know.
It just kind of felt like they were wearing a costume rather than trying to show appreciation for the culture, which like should have been something inherent in this lesson. But I think because Shu lacks that, he can't like get his students to think that. So like that's what I thought. It was like, wow, this is not doing the students any good.
I like the mashup though.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I like the song
mashup was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I'd never heard Bombaleo before, and hearing them together, it was really cool.
Yeah.
I went to an Enrique Iglesias concert when I was a child. And like with my mom.
Back when we could have concerts.
And I know. And like he like ended the concert without playing Hero. And so all of the people my mom's age-ish were like screaming and like weeping. And obviously he was gonna come back and do it for the encore, but it was just like, Hero! And then the lights came back on and he started singing Hero, and I wouldn't be surprised if at least 10 women fainted. It was like really a moment.
That's really funny. That's why like I always like at concerts back when we could have them, if they didn't play a song that I liked, I would be like, you know what, it's probably in the encore. And if it didn't happen in the encore, I'd be really upset. But you know, it normally was. But yeah, especially something as iconic as Hero.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
No, I like the matchup. I thought it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a good mashup, and the shoes were they felt odd, but then Finn is like, David Martinez talked about them because they're like a new hipster boot in Mexico, and
hipster's not the word I would use for the people who wear them, but continue.
And Santana's like, learning new, like he can speak Spanish, learning new like cultural trends. It seems like Mr. Martinez is like the new dreamy Spanish teacher. Like, are you gonna defend your honor? Like, are you gonna perform, Will? And they're all like, oh, you should perform. And he's like, what? Okay. And so we get a bit of hint at the conflict of who might have a problem with Mr. Shu's teaching style. Because that's also when she points out that when he learned the word muy. Which I just said in a very Caucasian way.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, muy.
Yeah.
Again, I would like to point out that this is not happening in Spanish class, any of this.
Great to point out again. Yes, a good reminder. This is happening in the choir room where Spanish class does not happen.
So then we get a scene with Emma and Sue, and Emma comes up to Sue with a pamphlet. Like, it says something like, don't hog my fiance's sperm or something. What was it? Like...
Nog.
I don't continue. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, it's reference to like eggnog. There you go.
And she's like,
love it.
Hey, why are you asking Will to have your baby? And Sue is like, because I'm filled with rage and I'm angry, and whenever I'm angry at Chu, he comes back at me with kindness. And I want that for my baby. And Emma is like, she's like, I'm not going to tell you that he's not going to do it. I'll leave that up to him. But I think you'd be a good mother. Or I think it'd be good for you. Which to me,
yeah,
that's an interesting perspective on having a child.
Yep, I agree. Just because it would be good for someone in whatever way doesn't mean it would be good for the child.
To be honest, I think Sue would be a great mom.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if we're there with you.
She has so I don't know if she'd be a loving mom, but she would be a fierce protector.
I could see, yes, that I agree to. Yeah. I also think she'd be very motivating. Like she'd be very like goal oriented, which can be good for some children.
The way she was with her sister, like I feel like she could be a loving mom.
True.
That's true. And she does mention that. But it is something that I think of, like when that kid becomes a teenager, does she treat them like the students? Or does she treat them more like her sister, but a little bit like the students, where she's a little harder?
I hope that she is retired by then.
I feel like weighing in on her maternal ability, I don't know, but Cullen did mention her incredible insults to Emma. Like, your avian frame? Like, she kept calling her a bird.
Yes.
And she was so aggressive. And this is like the scene that I fell in love with her. I was like, what a chaotic woman. Like, I love her.
That's a good way to put it. She's very chaotic.
Yeah, because she's like, could your avian frame withstand childbirth?
Yes. Like, what? Why is she so mean?
Yeah.
I love it.
There was something that happened in this scene that I was going to make a comment on. I don't remember what it was. Say what happened in the scene again?
So Emma is like, why do you want to have Will to be the father of your baby? Sue is like, I'm angry, but Will is kind. And and if that's genetic, I want that for my baby.
Yeah.
Can anyone remember when Will responded with kindness to Sue? No? Me neither.
I mean, unless she defines kindness as like just not totally lashing out. Like he's always like telling her how she's wrong and like Sue doing the better thing is right. And yeah, like
he's always
I wouldn't say that's kind.
He's always such a dick. I'm like, he's not a kind person like Sue. No.
I agree.
And we get proof of that this episode.
Yeah.
In a coming scene, so then Sue confronts Santana about, she thinks Santana filed the complaint, and she's like, just when I'm trying to have a baby. And that's when Santana says, with whose vagina?
That line is used more than once.
Yeah, Nene Leakes used it too in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't come in between me and my family. And Santana's like, I didn't do it. And then Will comes in and is like, is everything okay here? And then
another impeccable impression.
Thank you. And then Sue's like, I no longer need she says some weird word for sperm, your baby gravy. I found a new better donor. And Will is like, not like, okay, good. He's like, who?
Yeah. And then
true. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. He's like invested.
He's like, who's better than me? David Martinez?
Yeah, his Spanish line is like, who's more macho?
Of
me.
From or something like that. Yeah. Will Schuester. I was like, oh boy. And then Santana's like, what the fuck just happened?
And then we get Will is working on his translation from his translator book, his English to Spanish dictionary, Conversación.
Why didn't he just pick a song in Spanish?
Great point.
Why are you doing an Elvis Presley song for your like Latinx Appreciation Week? Like, what's going on?
Also, I don't trust his translating skills. Like, I feel like he's gonna pick like the wrong word for certain meanings, or like he's not gonna conjugate it properly. Like, I don't trust that this is gonna be accurate Spanish when he's just doing it from the dictionary.
Because what he had written was bad. Like, it didn't make any sense. But then in the song, they had done like a proper translation.
They probably had someone like a Spanish speaker being like, no, it has to be this way. And they're like, but we got it from the dictionary.
Like to show he was bad at it, but I guess like at some point off camera he smooths it out.
Well, because they want to sell the single on iTunes, so they want the Spanish to be good.
It's got to like make a little sense.
I kind of want to know how well that sold, because I didn't like that song at all.
Yeah, that's never on anyone's like favorite Glee covers.
It's not on my Glee playlist. Although I have to say, I'm Sexy and I Know It will be on my playlist soon.
So he's working on that, and Emma's like, I got my new box of pamphlets from the printers today. I'm feeling very Stephen King lately, very prolific. And she's like showing off her pamphlets, and it's so adorable. And he's like, what was the first one she showed? Because there's one like how to glue your own stitches.
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't remember the first one.
Because he's like, I'm trying to take care of you, and she's like, I just want to show you my pamphlets. He's like, don't you think they're a little corny? Like, do you think the kids actually take them seriously?
Yeah, he's like, they're silly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how dare you?
I love Emma's
This is the man who has a tradition of singing like Cucaracha on Taco Tuesday. Like, like suddenly he's about like seriousness in the classroom.
Good one. Shots fired.
Burned. Yeah, and he's such a jerk about it. He's like, I think they're silly. Like, I don't think the kids take them seriously. And she's like, I just want to show you my new pamphlets. And
she makes a good point. She's like, sometimes you have to do something a little out of the box to get their attention. They're conversation starters.
Mm-hmm.
Or conversación starters is what she says.
Mm-hmm. And then she says, you're being mean. And he says, do you have a pamphlet for that?
And that was so mean. I was like, ooh.
And then she crumbles up the entire box of pamphlets and shove them up his ass. No, I wish that's what happened. I wish that's what would happen. She would just be like, I'm sick of your shit.
So is he normally mean to her, or is this like a major moment?
Well, it depends. Yes.
That was like very
the answer.
mean.
So Glee doesn't think he's mean. They think he's very empathetic, but he's very condescending to her because she has OCD, and he's very condescending about it. He sings Fix You by Coldplay to her.
That's a good way.
Oh my
That's
God.
a great way to explain him. Like, he's very condescending. He's saying Fix You to her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why did she agree to marry this man? I was like, maybe this is like their first real fight. I don't know.
And honestly,
It's not,
any of the other
'cause he
episodes does not answer the question.
No. It's almost like the only major scenes we see between them are when they're having an argument about something.
Yeah.
I imagine that they're off camera. They maybe would have somewhat of a normal relationship, but the only parts we see are the high drama ones. So
Gotcha.
And like, he doesn't even, I don't know. Like, I feel like he feels really insecure about his ability to speak Spanish, the language that he teaches. And like, I feel like that's something Emma would be able to talk to him about, that like, you're feeling insecure about this. Maybe just continue taking Spanish classes and stop being a douchebag. But no, that doesn't happen.
He also has this very patriarchal, like, I'm trying to provide for you.
Oh yeah, I hated that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I thought because she was a counselor, she's like not eligible for the tenure position because it's like all made up. But then at the end of the episode, I was like, oh, he didn't even like once consider that she might get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought it was just because she was ineligible, but no, like
he's just an asshole.
Yeah.
No, actually, I mean, I don't know the earning potential of like a Spanish teacher to, you know, a counselor, but I feel like she would probably make more. I don't know if that would be accurate.
I don't know.
idea.
Yeah.
Let's look it up.
All right.
You guys can continue.
So, well, you looked it up. We get the next. We get a very authentic Madonna song.
Yeah, very Latinx authentic.
We have
Authentico, if you will.
The performance was great. Like they were both really good dancers.
Yeah, I love their voices together, which I don't remember this song. And then like hearing their voice together, I was like, oh, I want more of this. This is really good.
Yeah, so David Martinez and Santana danced together to La Bonita, and they sang, and it is a good performance, and the dancing's really good. And when you watch it, like they're both adults because both the actors are adults.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about her as a high schooler.
I didn't even think about that actually. Yeah.
I was actually thinking about it the whole time because I was like, well, they're both very attractive together. She's supposed to be 17.
And they weren't doing anything like racing per se, but like he was like reaching across
together.
her body, like,
and they didn't know each other really that well.
Yeah.
Well, it's like
it's not like
it was it looked like professional dancing and like professional partners almost, which isn't necessarily like a bad thing, but some of the moves that you have to do are a little bit handsy.
Yeah,
and then
like if teachers aren't supposed to like touch students, like period, like a hand on the shoulder touch, like so that was kind of.
We should send a memo to Will Schuester.
We should just send Ceci just a clip of scenes of teachers crossing the line on Glee.
No!
Oh my god! Yes,
I can tell that happens here.
We should do that.
I can tell that's like kind of the crux of the show is the crossing of lines by teachers.
Yeah. That's a good slogan for Glee.
Glee, teachers cross lines. Yeah, and then afterwards he's like, wasn't that so authentic? And I was like,
that was confusing to me because it was like, I guess the dancing's authentic, but like she knows it's Madonna, right? Like she doesn't think this is like.
I think she wanted to trick Shu into being like, yeah, I love Madonna, a great Latinx person.
That would have been like a really clever, wow, I wonder if
that's actually what I thought happened, and then that didn't. I was like, oh, then I'm still confused.
That'll happen in the Gleeboot. That's a really good idea.
That is a great idea.
He'd be like, yeah, Madonna. And she would have been like, ha! I told you.
Yeah. And he's like, why is David Martinez here? And she's like, I'm hot, he's hot, so.
Neither of those statements are wrong, but together in context of the show, probably shouldn't go together.
Yep.
Right.
And then he's like, I have a stack of night school papers to grade, so I'm going to dip out. And then Santana's like, I can't wait for your performance, Mr. Shu. And because he's sitting there in this coat, and Finn is like, what's up with the coat, man? I thought you were Kurt. And he's like, I am an authentic Spanish matador.
I didn't even catch that line. Oh my god. Okay, that's the second good joke, Mike Lee. That was really good. I thought you were Kurt. Oh my god. Yeah, he's literally sitting there wearing a matador outfit, and everyone around him should be like, oh god, this is not going to be good.
But they're all like, go, Mr. Shu, you got this. They'll have too much faith. These kids
have so much faith in him. Yeah, exactly.
So then he performs A Little Less Conversation in English and Spanish, while Brittany and Mike are dressed as bulls, and he's the matador.
With mariachi backing.
Yes, I noticed that too.
So we have Mexico and Spain duking it out in the bull ring to an Elvis Presley song.
Glee logic. There's also like throughout different numbers, the camera always like will shift to different instrument players who look of like Latinx descent. And so like I noticed that a lot throughout this episode where they're like Glee is even like, look, people of color. And it was just like, okay, I get it. I feel like this is Glee's response to people being like, maybe your music isn't diverse enough. And they're like, oh yeah, take this episode. And they're like, no.
Take it back. Yeah. Diverse a Madonna song.
Another Madonna song.
I thought they were like gonna do it because they did the Gloria Estefan and then they did the Gypsy Kings Enrique Iglesias mashup, and then they were like, that's enough for today. Like you can have some real music that was actually written in Spanish as a treat, and now it's done.
Like it would have been really interesting if like what I posed as that idea for Santana actually played out or something like it.
Yeah.
But it also just like proves Santana's point that he clearly is so out of it about cultural appropriation, essentially, that like he literally translates parts of a song when he really should just take his own, like do his own instructions and pick a song by a Latinx artist.
Yeah.
And it's like, what point are you trying to prove?
Like he wouldn't have had to do the dictionary thing. He could have skipped that. He didn't seem happy about doing that. Like he could have just chosen a song in Spanish.
I mean, I guess because like David was able to translate I'm Sexy and I Know It into Spanish, on the fly, like if that's sort of what he was going for, but it just kind of doesn't prove his point. It proves Santana's point that like you're still out of it.
Right, which is the point.
Yeah. It's just Glee logic. That's all I can say.
Because after the performance, he's like, Santana, you're the one who complained about me. And he's like, all the other kids thought my performance was great. And she's like, they don't know any better and you can't blame them because you're their teacher. You're the one who's supposed to be teaching them.
That was such a good
things.
line. I loved her for that when she was like, they don't know any better. Like it wasn't like, yeah, because they're stupid too. It was like, no, like your job was to teach them.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. And he's like, you're messing with adult things, Santana. And she's like, this is my education. And like, she doesn't say this is my culture. I always add that into my head, but she's like, and you don't understand the stereotypes you're perpetuating.
You're peddling.
Mm-hmm. Because you don't even see it. She's like, you might as well dress up as a Taco Bell Chihuahua and bark the theme song to Dora the Explorer.
And she's absolutely right. Like she literally, like he says, you're messing with adult stuff, but like in a way, so is he. Like this is her education. This is her future. And if you're teaching Spanish or even Glee Club this way, like what kind of things are you teaching her and then the people she may interact with in the future? Like he's also messing with her adulthood in a way too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked her little speech. I felt like her little speech was like she was like now finally like vocalizing what either like a woke watcher or a Latinx watcher would be thinking while like watching this whole episode. But like, I mean, I feel like the whole like question of like cultural appropriation or whatever, like it's like the problem is like there's like no deliberateness to what he's doing. He could be like, yeah, I'm gonna sing a Spanish song and I'm gonna dress as a matador and I'm gonna like do like flamenco moves and like that would be different. But for him to be like, I'm gonna get a mariachi band to track this Elvis song and dress as a Spanish matador is like he's seeing this as a monolithic culture. Anyone who speaks Spanish and whatever, and like that's obviously it's way more complex than that. But
yeah, I
felt like her little speech was good, but it was also like a little bit like you've been setting us up for this little speech.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But it is one of my favorite Santana moments. We just had last week we had her Smooth Criminal moment, which I loved. And this week we have this moment. So a lot of peak Santana.
So I actually thought maybe this episode had been written by someone on the writing team who was Latinx, and maybe the idea may have come from someone like that, but it was written by Ian Brennan, who is one of the co-creators of the show. So yeah, I thought that was going to be something to be like, oh, maybe a writer had input about this idea and helped create the episode, but I can't say that whether or not.
Yeah.
So if any listeners have any information about that, if you've done extra research, let us know.
So afterwards, Will seems to. I was skipping over the part where she tells Will. She's like, "What did you want to be when you grow up?" And he's like, quiet, and it's like, "Was it a Spanish teacher? Why are you a Spanish teacher?" And he's like, "'Cause it was the only teaching position available at the time," which is not how teaching works at all. But okay.
So I was actually thinking about that. So if that's the case, he took his praxis in whatever he studied in undergrad as his teaching specialty. Then he would have had to study more to learn Spanish enough to take the praxis in that foreign language to become a licensed teacher for that language. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But if it was open, he wouldn't have had time to study and take the praxis. So looks like they just gave it to him, possibly. Glee logic.
Is his white male privilege at work? Unqualified man.
I mean, he could have also pretended that he knew Spanish.
Well, maybe he was a Spanish minor. Like, you can get your way through.
That's true.
Class in college.
Yeah, no, that's true. So maybe he was like, "Yeah, I had a Spanish minor," and they're like, "Sure, teach Spanish."
Yeah. And she's like, "Clearly you're not passionate about it, because everything you do, you should do with passion. I learned that from an amazing teacher." And he's like, "Who?" And she's like, "From you in Glee Club." And I didn't want that part to be like, "It's all okay because you're so inspiring," so I almost skipped over it. But it was there.
The show always has to remind us that he's a good teacher, quote unquote. When he's not, we see that in a lot of ways. And the fact that Santana, who lodged a complaint about the way he's teaching Spanish, like, even she like admitted, like, "You're a good Glee teacher," like that, it just doesn't add up. Like, there's still something inherently wrong with the way he teaches if he can't teach his language class properly and with, cultural sensitivity. Yeah, I don't know. But, the show found a way to justify it, I think.
Yep.
It was confusing because the setup to that was like very like predictable. It was like, an amazing teacher taught me that. Who? Like, you would know it's gonna be him, but like, having only seen his teaching in this one episode, I was like, surely not him.
I actually thought she was gonna say Sue. I actually thought she was gonna say Sue.
I was confused because I was like, they're setting me up to think he's a good teacher, but like, she doesn't think he's a good teacher. I know that for a fact.
We can't fool us. We can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, all the other episodes will lead you to the same conclusion. It simply can't be him, right?
So afterwards, Beast and Emma are talking about her latest pamphlet about taints and cleaning below your jockstrap, and how it was super successful with the football team, and she gave it to Cooter, her husband, and he gave it to Ohio State, and he convinced all the other Big Ten teams to get the pamphlet. And so they're talking about how successful Emma's pamphlets are, and Will's like, "Oh, what's amazing? My plan for regionals? Like, me?"
Oh, is that how he? Yeah. Oh, I didn't even catch that. I was ignoring him.
And they're like, "No, Emma's pamphlets, they're super successful and super helpful." And we see Beast talking to the boys, and they're all like
screaming at them. Actually,
and they're like, "I didn't know we had to wash there."
Yeah, Puck's like, "I just thought it was really gay." And I'm like, okay. And then what did Finn say? Just lift and scrub? Yeah. He's like, "Who knew it was that easy?" I was like, "How long have you had testicles? What's going on here?"
Yeah, so quality content. And Emma is like proud of her pamphlets, and Beast is all like, "You should be so proud of her." And we're like, Will wasn't. But
yeah, he was well, clearly he was starting the conversation looking for validation about himself.
Yes.
So yeah, I love how how excited Beast was. Like, she was so proud of her friend Emma, and I was like, that's really sweet.
Aww.
You love Beast.
Honestly, I do. Like, Coach Beast, I just feel like there's not enough of her anymore.
I want the trio again. Sue, Emma, Beast. That's what I want. I want them to be friends forever.
Will is at his Spanish class, and he gets most improved.
His night class, the class that he's taking, not the class teaching.
Yeah.
Right. Once again, we will never see that class again.
And that old lady got best conjugator or something like that. And she's like, yeah, now my maid knows not to use the toilet. And I'm like, that's all you learned?
And he's just like, haha. And Will is like, oh, that's not what a Spanish teacher wants to get. But he's like, you'd be a great Spanish teacher. The kids all think you would. I had them all go into Figgins' office and talk about how great you'd be. So you're going to be the new Spanish teacher, and then I'm going to fill the opening in the history department. And David is just, he's so happy.
He's so happy.
He hugs him. He's like, thank you. I wish we got to see this character at the school teaching Spanish. But they can't afford Ricky Martin every week.
No.
That's true. Not even for a quick flash. Like, he's way too expensive. But now I will go forward knowing that that the students of McKinley are getting a quality education in Spanish.
Not in history.
Not in history, which is also worrisome.
He has a minor in history as well.
Yeah.
Maybe he was major in history. Who knows?
He said he liked History Channel. That was like his
That's true. So he did have a major in history.
He certainly did not.
He was probably an English major.
Is Ancient Aliens on history?
Yes.
It used to be. I don't know if it is anymore, but I know it used to be.
So that's what he's teaching in class.
Yeah. Oh God, I bet you the history class is just going to be a bunch of like history documentaries.
Ancient Aliens is definitely better than Nazis winning the war.
Yeah, them thinking the Nazis won.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, he's not stepping into like shoes of any sort. Like he's just
Yeah. And so then we get a Sue and Becky scene where Becky is injecting hormones into Sue for her pregnancy. She's like, I'm gonna need these every week.
Which is also another inappropriate thing for something to happen in the school with a student and a teacher. Just not appropriate.
No.
And
N-O.
And she's like, Becky, I knew you filed a complaint. And she's like, how?
And I thought that they were going to talk about her injections or something related.
She's like, well, you know how you just asked me to do something inappropriate.
Well, I feel like you asked me to do a lot of things that are inappropriate. No,
remember
that's
the
not what
time when
happened.
you made me dress up as the dog from The Grinch and we had to steal Christmas?
So Becky and Boo Boo Stewart have a lot in common. Oh yeah, listeners, Cullen, Alyssa, and I tried to watch The Grinch. We were going to record it for your entertainment, but we simply could not get through it. It's that bad.
Yeah.
So just watch a highlight video and you'll get the gist.
It was number one. The website was kind of
Glitchy.
really glitchy.
Yeah,
So
at
that did
NBC.com,
not help.
you suck. We had to sit through commercials. It cut every 5 minutes after just a song of repeating the information they just told us. I learned nothing. I was terrified for my life.
Yeah.
And Matthew Morrison has now
Committed another war crime.
yes. Please arrest him.
But she's like, how did you find out? And Sue's like, oh, I broke into Figgins' office and it was the only evaluation filled out in crayon. So degrading her.
No, it was one of two.
Because she's like, and you spell better than Brittany.
And you're the better speller. I laughed really hard. It was really funny. I didn't want to laugh.
Well, it's funny that Brittany writes hers in crayons because she wrote the book report in crayons.
But it's not funny that Becky does. I think the funny part was to me, like, and you're the better speller, because we just know Brittany's the bad speller, and it made me laugh about Brittany. Yeah.
Because Becky, it's insulting her intelligence in a character that's always seemed intelligent.
She's very intelligent. She's clearly is very clever and smart. And yeah, I mean, yeah, they basically make her super childlike because of her Down syndrome. Like, of course, she would write it in crayon, kind of thing, which isn't valid at all. It's pretty wrong.
Yeah, so not good. So then she's like, "But Becky, you're doing it because you care about the team, and you were calling me out, and I appreciate that. Like, you're a good co-captain."
The feedback was that you weren't focusing on the team enough, which then she boils down to, because I'm about to have a kid. But like, what about previously when she was so focused on destroying Schuester that she was basically risking the team?
Yeah.
Like, that's not brought up at all.
Nope.
And she just
doesn't make
everybody in this
sense.
episode seems surprised that she wants to have a kid, so it's not like that's been an ongoing thing, right?
No, this is the first time we hear of it.
Huh.
Yeah, it's weird.
Shrug.
And then Emma gets the tenure.
Which is not made very clear. Can I just point out?
No, it's not.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I literally sat there for 5 minutes like, wait, who won? I don't get it. Who won? Tell me.
So Will sets out a nice a dinner for them, and he pulls out a pamphlet and it says,
"So your fiance was a jerk."
Yes.
See, I thought he was just gonna apologize.
No.
Which just made me think of my mom was complaining about people who like to give gifts to make up for shitty behavior. And I was like, oh, Will.
Yeah, a Will Schuester. That's what we should call those people, a Will Schuester.
His second pamphlet was congratulations. It said congratulations.
I love you.
I love you. And then it had like Emma popping out of a little cup that said tenure. So that is how we know.
Yeah.
That's an oddly specific graphic that he would have had to make, or he paid a student to make.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's Will. He made them do it for exposure.
Because I don't believe that man has graphic design skills at all.
Just Glee. Can you just for once just tell us that Emma got tenure? Like, I don't need a pithy.
So what's interesting is, so the line is something like, well, who got tenure, or this person got tenure, and then it cuts to Sue getting the shots in her ass, and I'm like, oh, it was Sue, because that's visual logic.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden this dinner's happening. I was like, oh, he's apologizing. And he's gonna be like, oh, I didn't get the tenure position. I'm so sorry. I'm the worst. You should break up with me. And she's like, yes, let's break up. But that's not what happens. So yeah, it was very confusing. Visual logic, a 0 for that sequence.
But they do this a lot.
I don't. A 10. I feel like it might have been a deliberate misdirect, right? Like,
yeah.
Probably.
In the way of like a reality show, like totally being like next on, and then it's like all wrong.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I hate that.
Yeah. I do too.
I hate it.
I mean, it was all very unclear.
It needs to just be clear.
I agree.
Well, the thing is, like, I truly did not know she was in the running because I thought you had to be a teacher.
Right, exactly.
I agree. That's exactly the point.
When it was her, I was like, oh. So then when he was like, I'm doing this for you, blah, 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 she should have been like, I could get it too. Like, that was a little strange to me. That it never came up before.
Yeah, instead of,
that's a great point.
I mean, I liked her line saying, like, I can take care of myself. But a line saying, you know, I could actually get tenure also would have made a lot more sense in this entire episode.
Just with this end to that line.
And it, you know, you could work that together. Be like, oh, I can take care of myself. I could even
take
get that
care
tenure
of
position.
you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that could totally work. That would make a lot more sense. At least know she's in the running.
Yes.
Yeah, but they do joke about, what do I call you now, Professor, and then they decide on like
doesn't make a
Professor
goddamn
Dollface
sense.
or something, and
Hate that. That seems really sexist. I don't like that.
yeah. So that's the end of the tenure storyline. So that's most of the episode. We just have a couple small bits of stuff going on with the teenagers.
The people who are the stars of the show.
Okay, well, Ricky Martin was the star of the show this time around.
Yeah, sorry. The more important stars of the show who appear often, Ricky Martin was bill number 1. I love him. Literally, though, when I saw him, I was like, oh my God, my 9-year-old self is weeping, and also so is my 26-year-old self because I love him.
Yes.
So Mercedes, Kurt, and Rachel are watching a movie. They're watching Twilight, it's implied. And Rachel pauses the movie because Mercedes is like, how does she choose? And Rachel's like, when it's true love, you just know. She pauses the movie.
Well, are we focusing on Finchel or are we focusing on Sam
We're going to do
Sadie's?
Finchel first and then Sam Sadie's.
Okay.
And then
I just gotta know though, because their entire discussion was about like basically like Team Jacob versus Team Edward, and I have to know.
So which is which?
Yes, who are all of you guys rooting for?
I'm Team Bella's dad.
Bella's dad. That's a little bit incestual.
No.
No, like
I
his
don't
thing
even
is
want
he doesn't
Bella
want
in the
her.
story. I just want to focus on his story.
That's fair.
Like, think about it. He's a sheriff in this town where there are attacks, and I want to follow his story.
you should watch Teen Wolf.
Yeah, he's like the only sane.
I restarted Teen Wolf. I love that show. I actually haven't finished it, so I do want to kind of like get through the whole thing because I stopped it like right before the final season. But yeah, no, I'm Team Billy Burke all the way.
Was this episode during the entire like thing where Team Edward and Team Jacob was such?
Yeah.
I remember that. It was a big thing.
That was an intense time.
Yes.
I think I saw one of the Twilight movies at midnight.
Same,
And
yeah. Well, but I was like riding the habit of watching the Harry Potter, doing all the Harry Potter midnight stuff, and then it was over, and I was like, I guess I'll do the Twilight stuff now.
I think that's what happened. Like, I never read
like...
the books, but I had friends, and my mom wanted to see them.
I read all the books.
And so, like, my mom took some of me and my friends to see it at midnight. And we had a great time seeing a movie at midnight, waiting in line. Like, it's annoying, but it's kind of like, oh, I'm a part of something,
exciting,
which we can't do now.
Yeah, it used to be exciting.
Being part of something, you guys.
Like a podcast?
I used to gather with a group of people. Crazy, like in person, really close together, eating with all that air circulating. No, thank you. Won't do it again.
Were you Team Cullen or Team? Wait.
Well, he had to be Team Cullen. Team Edward or Team Jacob? Did you support your brother?
So the only movie I've seen is the last one.
Cullen, we need to watch those movies together. They're
Weird
so
choice
bad.
to make. Why did you do that?
Well, because my friends were like, we want to see the last Twilight movie. It was like my freshman year of college. And I was like, I'll only go if you pay for the ticket.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
And so I watched it and I was like, I hate all these characters. And
yeah.
I hated when the werewolf imprinted on the baby.
All you have to see is when the baby
was so bad too.
All you have to see is when the baby, and I laugh because fuck that baby.
So
also, give a raise to the person who made that baby because memes.
True. They're like, I'm doing this for the culture, not for the movie.
I don't remember it.
You don't remember
watched
the baby?
one of the last two because you know how they split the last book into two. I watched one of them in Spain, and I saw it dubbed into Spanish, which was like all very strange because there was like no Kristen Stewart voice. Like all of it was very strange.
It was probably better, to be honest. It was a very boring movie.
Oh, that's not how they're supposed to sound. And I went with like my mom because I was studying abroad. I was like, that's not how it's supposed to sound. And my host mom, like, I realized like she's never heard it the way that I'm like
Oh yeah.
comfortable with. I'm like
it's
so
like, you don't
uncomfortable,
hear
like
the
deeply
lifeless
uncomfortable.
voice of this character.
Right. She doesn't know.
Okay, so what was the question? Team Jacob or
Yeah.
Edward?
I'm Team Jacob because I prefer werewolves over vampires. Vampires are one of my biggest fears.
Well, you're actually afraid of them?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
The way you looked, you were like, yeah, of course.
You should be too.
Well, I mean, it's like
They're
but
everywhere.
they're not real, so that kind of puts a damper on it.
But they could be.
But I feel like
So could werewolves.
when
Werewolves.
demons
Well,
could
actually,
be more
no.
like
I feel like
aliens could be more real.
vampires are more likely to happen than werewolves.
Yeah.
Because werewolves, well, I don't know. There's a lot of
The moon is
shape-shifting
weird,
lore,
man.
obviously. That's true.
I mean, the moon is weird. Also, lycanthropy is a real psychological thing that happens, and there's also
What
a thing that
happens?
happens. Well, it's when you actually believe you're a werewolf. So I'm not sure what actually came first.
Okay.
So that's kind of
Oh.
an odd thing. But
Yeah.
also there's this weird thing that happens where, like, if a bunch of people are acting weird, so my mom works in a nursing home, and a bunch of people are suddenly starting to act strange, people will be like, oh, is it
It's a
full
full
moon
moon.
tonight? And it is.
Yeah.
Like, just people act
Mm.
weird during the full moon.
Yeah, no, the
moon is weird.
The
Mhm.
moon is weird.
When I was like all the way up until I was like 18, I thought that periods were synced with the moon. Because I had no sex
Colin.
education.
Oh no.
Oh,
This is
that's
what
why
happens
I
when
can't even
there's
laugh
no
about
sex
it.
education.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Mhm.
bummed. That's a bummer.
That's not your fault.
Just like the kids in Glee, it's not their fault.
Well, I don't know. Slashing tires is their fault.
Many things are their fault. Their ignorance is Will's.
Yes, exactly. Okay, well that was the Twilight corner. But Cullen, seriously, we should have a watch along. I would love to get drunk and watch Twilight
Yes,
with you.
can we
Let's start a
please?
podcast about an IP that happened years ago. We've never done that before.
Comment below if you want to start a Twilight podcast.
Like and subscribe.
Smash that like button.
Are
Like
you
button.
Team Jacob
Hit that bell.
or Team Edward? I keep wanting to say Team Cullen.
I'm Team Cullen.
There you
I'm
go.
Team Cullen. Yeah, no. Although if I have to pick, I would say Jacob though, because I may or may not have seen was a second movie like 4 times in theaters because of shirtless Taylor Lautner.
When I was in middle school reading the books, I was Team Edward, but like looking back,
I couldn't finish the
they're both
first
terrible
book.
options.
They definitely
Yeah.
are. I read all the books and watched them all.
Team Bella moving out of Washington.
Yeah.
Right.
The real question, Team Shark Boy or Team Lava Girl?
Oh, I
I
shipped
just
them
saw
though.
that for the first time recently.
Oh my god, well we have to talk
George
about it. How did you love
Lopez's
it?
head in the circle
Yes.
thing.
Don't we love it? Don't we love that kid who's like, I did not do it. He is lying. I love that kid.
was really amazed.
Now I want to watch that movie
Take him to
again.
the principal's office and have him expelled.
It was wild.
Yes.
The whole ride.
So as like someone who didn't know they were bi back in the day, now I think about it like, oh yeah, I was attracted to both of those kid icons when I was a kid.
Baby
Like
Taylor Lautner and
Baby Taylor Lautner, and I think that that girl's name was Taylor, so they were both Taylors. I
Yeah.
remember being like, oh my god, they're both so attractive, and now I'm like, yep, that was a sign. Think about it, Hannah. It was a sign.
all right.
Anyway.
So
What were we talking about?
they're at a
Glee.
sleepover. They're switching snacks back and forth.
I was confused about that. Someone
Yes.
explain that.
I
to me.
was wondering what they were eating.
confused. Also, I was like, well, because I couldn't see what was in the bowl. So the whole
Yes.
problem, that was the whole problem. I couldn't see.
I saw what looked like a French fry
Yeah.
that I think Kurt had picked up. But other than that, I was confused. Like, why would you put French fries in a bowl?
yeah.
So
For a
I don't
movie,
know.
like all of us.
I just thought maybe like, okay, one was kettle corn, one was cheddar popcorn, but no, I saw French fry. I was like, what?
My brain was imagining different types of popcorn as well, and then the French fry popped up, and
I was like,
oh.
that totally makes sense. I get that, but the French fry thing threw me
I
off.
want popcorn.
I don't like popcorn.
I love popcorn.
Alyssa lives by popcorn.
Yes.
I only eat it every once in a while. Like I'll have a craving for like kettle corn or like cheese popcorn. I'm actually kind of a little drunk. But like normally it's a consistency thing where like it gets stuck in your teeth. I don't like that.
Yeah.
In fact.
I think my family's dinner recipe is popcorn.
Dinner?
Yes. My mom and I, we ate popcorn for dinner a lot when I was a child, and I still do that.
Yeah, they do it whenever Alyssa's mom comes to visit.
Yeah.
So explain this to me. You just eat popcorn?
Yeah, so we make...
Or is it like as a side?
No, we make popcorn, and we eat it, like a lot of popcorn.
Do you do like stove popcorn or microwave?
Air popper. So
okay, cool.
it, like actual kernels.
Like fancy.
Yeah. And you pop
and
them up.
that's your dinner.
Yep, and we put butter and popcorn salt on it because popcorn salt is important. It's smaller than normal salt. But it's the same thing. It's just salt.
I just learned a lot. I can't wait to ask Beth about this in 2 weeks when she's on.
What is
I'm gonna
next week.
Is it next week?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was episode 14. I think I get it mixed up because that episode is coming out on Valentine's Day because it's the Valentine's Day episode. And I just think 2/14, that's why.
I see.
So next week, I can't wait to ask Beth about this. I want to know where, okay. I've got all these questions in my head. Let's continue.
Well, we drink it we eat it with orange juice.
I have more questions. I have so many questions. Okay.
So they're switching snack bowls. The girls are being very serious, and Kurt's like, "Why are you being so serious and dramatic? Our periods aren't until the end of the month."
I had a fit.
Okay. So we understand that sometimes the show will pit Kurt as if he's one of the girls, quote unquote. But then this is Kurt pitting himself as quite literally one of the girls. I don't know how I feel about that. It's a bit confusing to me.
If I was in the room, I would have slapped him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so then Rachel reveals that she's like, well, Finn, she like pulls out a necklace and they're like, what is that? And she's like, it's an engagement ring. And Kurt is like, I'm gonna go yell at Finn. And she's like, no, Finn and I are in love, and I always know that he's the one for me, and I have big dreams, and they involve a lot of struggle that I'm going to talk about on Jimmy Kimmel someday. But
which she's going to call her
top ramen weeks.
Yes. Weeks. And I was like, what?
Weeks, not years.
Yeah, exactly.
That was cute. I feel like that was very like teenager who's like daydreaming about being famous.
Yeah.
You know? Thinking about what you're going to say on the talk show.
Rachel has like some of those like really good lines. Like, okay, clearly she's putting a lot of thought into like these very minute things about being famous and successful in her field. But like when she was like, I know he's the one I'm going to spend my life with, I just went, like that's also very teenage. And I'm glad that there was someone else other than Quinn, who she probably is a bit closer to give her more perspective.
Yeah, because
even though it kind of seemed a bit, he was kind of just being mean.
Well,
Kurt.
And then he says something. What does he say? He says something like, that's a terrible decision or something.
Yeah,
yes,
and she's
like
well, what would you do if Blaine asked you to marry him?
And then there was just a pause of silence.
But I think that's really different for a gay kid and a straight girl. Like, I feel like that's kind of different.
Now when they're 17, is like the same. I mean, it's
true.
Like,
True.
Sure, it's different. But in general, probably
In
shouldn't
general,
be getting
yeah.
married at all because they're just too young.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Mercedes and Kurt are surprised, and so then we get a scene of.
But Mercedes is really quiet. I'm surprised Mercedes doesn't have more to say.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
She's thinking about her own little.
That's true. She's really
Edward
preoccupied.
situation.
Yeah. And so then we get a scene of Finn working out, and Kurt comes in, and he's like, "Oh, hey, do you want to lift?" And he's like, "No, I prefer to work out in my own bedroom." And he
mentions like some.
Yeah, he mentioned
guru.
some sort of like thing, like probably like a trademarked sort of exercise video.
Yeah,
thing,
like the Jane Fonda of his generation or something.
And he hands Finn a pamphlet for a bunch of colleges in New York and on Long Island. And he's like, "There's a train that goes into Manhattan." And he's like, "Well, college isn't for everyone." And Kurt's like, "Well, marriage isn't either." And he's like, "Why didn't you tell me? We're supposed to be brothers." And Finn is like, "Well, I didn't want to put you in an awkward situation with Bert. I didn't want to tell him yet." And he's like, "If it's something that you should be happy about, you shouldn't have to hide it from the people you love."
Good
He's basically like, "Isn't that a bad sign?" And I was like,
yes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That is very good advice. Unless
in this conversation, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, unless your family is not a good family, and they, that's all I'm going to say.
In this conversation, I wrote this down because this also blew my mind. This like 18-year-old who's like lifting at his high school gym says, "I'm getting to the point in my life where like something about like figuring out who he needs to be." And I was like, "You're 18. Like, what point like are you in your life?" Like,
yeah,
where he's like basically saying like, "I need to settle down and like let go of my dreams. I'm 18." Like,
yeah, he's like, "I'm over the hill."
Yeah, as old as the hills.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too because he is obviously trying to figure out, what his next steps are, but he does make it seem like this is the end. And I'm like, you're going to have so many of those moments where like, what do I want to do with my life? Like I think I said last week, at 26, I'm having one of those moments for probably the 10th time in my life. Like Finn, honey, it's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
And
I wish someone was there to actually tell him that.
I just feel like it'd be more realistic if he'd said something like, "I don't know what I want to do with my life, but like the only thing I'm sure about is her," or whatever. But to be like, "I've already figured out that like I gotta settle down and stop dreaming." Like,
it's like he's been around the block a few times. It's like, you haven't. You're not even on the right street.
because he's like, "Rachel is the only good thing in my life," and he's like, "That's not true." And he's like, you're not, you're a star. You're a star as bright as Rachel. Like there's a millions of me. Cause he's like, "I'm not you, I'm not Rachel." And he's like, "There's a million of us, but a lot of theater programs don't have the straight hot jock who can sort of dance."
But my question is, why are they pushing musical theater on him when like, I'm sure there are other things he could try to pursue. Like, not everyone in this Glee club is going to want to or be successful at going into the arts. Like, is it realistic to Kurt that he could actually be cast in future productions after going through school?
Yeah.
Like,
okay, seems to think he's like special because he's a jock.
Yeah, like he can't really
he's
dance.
Like, "You're different than us, and because of that, you're gonna get."
You actually have a disadvantage because you can't dance very well. Like, that's what doesn't make sense. Is like, it would have made more sense if Kurt was like, "Hey, like there are other programs, but like I know you're good at this other subject, like engineering or something, whatever. Like they have this other program that you could do, and it's a short train trip to Manhattan." Like, it just, like, I think Quinn is also going for drama, which, I think is more likely for her. But, like, I don't know, everyone's so focused on an arts-focused degree and then career that, like, it might not be likely for everybody, especially, like, Finn.
Yeah.
So it feels a bit unfair to him.
Like he's not being given good options. That's why he's like,
no one is giving him basically any options.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're like football or, performing arts. What if
or no college at all? That's it.
Exactly. Like, but what if he goes into like making films, or what if he goes in, something more arts related, or what if he decides he's actually good at accounting?
You could do communication. I did that. It's pretty easy.
Communication, yeah, and there's a ton of things you can do with that.
That's why I did it, because it's versatile.
Yeah, exactly. And like he could work in performing arts still as, a producer or a theater manager or something like that. Like he could still do that.
It's so many things for people to do.
Yeah, and no one's giving him options. It's just like it feels like the show and all the characters only see him in these either a jock or performing arts person, and no wonder he's having an identity crisis at 18. Like he's not being given any other options. So maybe Emma shouldn't be given that tenure because she hasn't helped Finn at all.
That is
JK, yeah. She deserves it.
Well, I mean, every time we see her with students, she's not exactly the best counselor.
That's true. Actually, yeah, let's pull the receipts.
Yeah, so let's just finish up. So with Kurt and Finn, so Kurt eventually is like, I think you could be a star, and leaves, and Finn's like, thank you, Kurt. And so we get this nice...
and it's just an ominous ending, really.
I thought it was a nice brotherly moment between these two characters.
Yeah.
This scene had good tension, which I liked. And then, so that's the end of the Finchel. So let's talk about Sam Sadie's real quickly.
Okay.
So Sam and Mercedes are in Emma's office because they kissed during Michael Jackson week.
Gasp. Yeah, they did.
And she has pamphlets for this. So you're a two-timing hoe. So you're dating a two-timing hoe.
Okay, so I get the shock factor that's supposed to be a conversation starter, if you will. It feels a bit inappropriate just in general. So maybe this is something else to consider for the tenure thing, is that like maybe she goes a bit overboard.
Maybe.
The pamphlets were very successful, according to this episode.
For the jock-ish thing.
Right. To be fair, it did start a conversation.
True.
Technically, it ended it, but
oh, yeah.
Because they stopped talking. It took a little...
We got there. Yeah.
I'm going to just drink.
Mercedes like, I don't sleep around. I'm just confused. Like, I want to listen to my heart, but I don't know what my heart's telling me. And she's like, well, maybe there's too much noise. And Sam is tweeting that you smell good. And he's like, I won't stop till it's trending. And
I thought that was kind of weird, actually. Not going to lie.
Yeah, that was strange.
I wanted to root for him, but I'm like, that was weird.
Well, I think I missed that line because I was like, so I saw that he tweeted that she smelled good. And then,
which is also weird.
Yeah, that was weird. And then I thought he said it's already trending, but he said I'm not going to stop till it's trending.
Yeah, so that's even weirder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so where were we? Yeah. So then she's like, there's so much noise with all the texting and tweeting and Facebooking. Why don't you guys don't talk to each other for a week? Just silence, like no online communication or talking in person, then see how you feel. So and then it starts when it hits 12, the clock strikes 12.
Does anyone else think this is the strangest relationship advice they have ever heard?
Actually, no.
Really?
I actually think this is, for teenagers, I think it's actually good advice.
Yeah.
To like get them separated from each other, to focus on themselves or other relationships, even if they are constantly thinking about that other person, like they're still opening themselves up to other things. And then when they come back to each other, if they still have those same feelings, that okay, yes, maybe they should explore them. But if not, you know, if even they still make other decisions, then maybe there's something to like, okay, maybe it's not as strong as they thought it was. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, you know how like high school infatuation is like essentially you just like someone because they like you. And because you can tell each other you like each other, like that's all.
Right.
Like you just like, do you like me? I like you. It's so cool how I like you and how you like me. Like just texting back and forth.
Yeah.
So I feel like telling them to stop so that like Mercedes can decide whether or not she would like to like this one or be with her boyfriend. She has a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I feel like whatever. It's as good a technique as any, I guess.
I don't know.
That's kind of it. It's like I think it's a good start to something at least.
That's true. It's not like she's telling them never to talk again. It's just a first step.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
but it wasn't like she was like, stop talking to both your boyfriend and this guy.
Exactly. It's just
that
stop talking to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing that I was confused about this was what really are the terms of what constitutes talking to each other?
Do they sing to each other?
Bingo.
Yeah, because Mercedes sings Gloria Stefan.
She sings a love song
Don't
to
wanna
him.
lose you, and he sings Hero basically to her.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they're expressing their feelings through song.
And then at the end of the week, the time's up, and they rush towards each other to sing, to talk, and Summer Nights plays in the background, and then Shane appears.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, whenever
I didn't even notice
instrumental.
that.
There's like
Yeah, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, whenever we
That's
get Sam Sadie stuff, they play Summer Nights in the background.
Oh.
Yeah. And then Shane appears, her boyfriend, and is like, hey, are you ready? We're going off campus for lunch. And Mercedes is like, oh, okay. And walks away.
So they never actually say anything to each other.
Yep.
So, but then she looks back as she walks away, and I'm like, so what does this mean?
We don't know. I guess we're gonna have to find out.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I guess you guys are watching these in sequence, but have already seen them, right?
I have not. This is new to me.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty murky for this whole season and beyond, so
I remember. Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I feel like that's not like a resolution, but maybe it is. Maybe it's saying she chose him, but it was like she didn't really. Like, I don't know. It was kind of unsatisfying, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I do like what they're doing with Sam and Mercedes by they're actually telling a serialized story that like happens in little pieces through each episode, which usually Glee exists and dies in its own universe each episode. So I like that they're carrying something in between. Yeah. So that's the end of the episode. Any final comments before the final sections?
I have a couple things. So when Shu does his Matador thing, I did actually think it was really funny. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Puck's face, they panned to him and he was like awkwardly smiling, like barely clapping. And I thought that was really funny. And I think it actually captured my feelings. So like, I was like, I felt compelled to clap because it was over, but I didn't really like it. And then the other thing was David Martinez. We agree that this whole story of this episode happens in a single week, correct?
Yeah.
David Martinez, when Shu gets his award, he literally says, "Great year, everybody." And I'm like, how much time has passed? 6 days, maybe 5? I disagree. I don't think you can learn Spanish enough in 5 or less days to be given any sort of award.
I
just had like
that.
several possibilities run through my brain, but none of them make sense. But I'm gonna like name them quickly. One, I was like, well, maybe Shu came to this class late, like they've been going for a while, but he was like, panic, gotta learn Spanish. But then how was he most improved if that's the case?
Exactly.
And then also they were all doing the like why I'm here thing at the beginning. So
yes. Yeah, so there are a lot of issues there. I do like that first one though, but then like maybe it's like, oh, we have a new student everyone go around for the 100th time, tell us why you're here. And the old lady's like, I'm doing it because my maid. And we're like, yeah, we know your maid. Person. So yeah, I was really confused about that.
I forgot to say when I threw up.
Oh God,
no.
when did you throw up?
When was it?
I threw up when Kurt walked in to talk to Finn in the weight room.
Okay, so you smelled the weight room. You're like, whoa.
Yes.
That was the Spanish teacher.
That was it.
And the Spanish teacher ended up being Ricky Martin. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. As it should be. Everything ended better than it began.
It's true. They're going to learn Spanish now, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank God those kids are going to be able to pass their college entrance exams.
So now it is
Tina time.
Tina was not even featured in this episode in the background.
She wasn't there.
Are you serious?
She wasn't. I looked it up on the Glee wiki.
I don't even remember seeing her.
I don't remember seeing her at all either.
Jenna Ushkowitz was absent.
Okay.
Wow, that's sad. Poor Tina.
So now it's time for MVPs and LVPs. So, Ceci, who is your least valuable player this week?
I feel like Shu, which is kind of like boring, but like he sucked. like he was quite not good. Yeah, because like even the other characters that were like bad people, like I'll hold on.
Well, I mean, like someone like Sue, who sometimes we'll pick her and be like, oh, like this is pretty bad, but like she was at least fun to watch. Sue was
that's what I was gonna say. Like being totally new to Glee, like unironically, Santana was my MVP, but like ironically, like I'm obsessed with Sue. Like she is outrageous. I just like she's so mean. She's so great.
And that's the thing is, like, we want to have fun during the show, and Shu is rarely fun. Like I can't imagine. I can't even think of an episode where he was actually fun to watch.
Well, Sue has fun moments and fun scenes and dialogue.
Always. Even if I'm like, I don't agree with that, but I'm like, that's kind of funny. Like she's still more enjoyable to watch. Yeah. So I'm also going to second that. I'm going to say Shu. This is probably my 1000th time of nominating him for this, but like I feel like often he's the star of the episode because he does something wrong. And I feel like that's always when he's like the LVP for me. So yeah, he did a couple big bads this week, being mean to his future wife, very condescending to her. Also, just like the way he kind of attacked Santana about it in front of everyone, when really he should have done that in a one-on-one conversation.
Not attacked him.
But I'm glad that she gave him the business.
Yeah.
I'm also going with Shu for all of the same reasons. And he was just a bad person.
He's a bad teacher.
Yeah, he's a bad teacher.
Starring Cameron Diaz.
Yeah. And he didn't even really learn anything because then he goes straight to teaching history, which he doesn't know.
Right. Which is also, but like that's kind of, I don't know, I feel like that's also kind of a cool thing. It's like, oh, like maybe you're just not the person for this, man. Like maybe you should just cede the space, which he did, but like still got a job. Yeah. Still had job security about it.
He went from teaching Spanish that he doesn't speak natively or really at all, to then teaching history, which is the white man's narrative. So I feel like he made a lateral leap there.
What about you, Cullen?
I'm going with Mr. Shu. He's a monster.
How dare you call him Mr. Shu? He does not deserve that respectful title.
Yeah, he's just so awful, and this episode is one of his, like, exposes him as such an awful character, like if we didn't know it already. And the show still tries to be like, but he's great. But like you watch it and you're like, he's obviously not.
I'd like to add a secondary LVP of the lady in the Spanish class. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, actually, that's a good point. Okay, I can't wait to get to MVPs then.
So, Ceci, who's your MVP?
Okay, so I said Santana. I also said Sue because she's just so much. But also, like, Ricky Martin did a great job, I think, of being just a sweetheart. Like,
what was your favorite Sue moment?
Probably when she said that about the avian frame. It was just so vitriolic. I just love her.
I would recommend watching like a best highlights video of Sue to get some of her iconic lines.
Well,
just
I
to
didn't
further
know
love
that
her.
like I'm gonna create an environment that's so toxic came from Glee. Like that's like one of my favorite memes. Like, and then I saw her in a tracksuit and I was like, like after all this time.
My MVP is going to be Santana because I'm glad that she lodged a complaint against Shu because he clearly was not fit for his position. Not that I think he would be better suited for history, but you know, at least there's some sort of improvement. But my honorary mention would be the guy who raved about David Martinez's teeth.
Oh yeah.
That guy who was a student, he was just like, your teeth are so beautiful. I was like, I love this guy. He speaks the truth.
Do you think he learned anything in that class?
He learned the words for teeth and flossing, and that's it.
Yeah.
He was just like, oh my God.
The teeth were so distracting. I'm gonna go with David Martinez just because he was a really fun guest character, and even though he sang like a couple kind of inappropriate songs, he wasn't actually like being inappropriate like we've seen with other guest characters. Like he seemed like an actually legitimately good teacher. So I'm happy with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like a sweetie. Like he wasn't, and he also didn't play a stereotype, which was nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going with Santana as well because she tried to take down that monster that is Will. And she at least got a better Spanish teacher out of the deal. So,
yeah, not all heroes wear capes. Some of them wear Cheerios uniforms.
They're like net +1 on good teachers at that school as of this episode.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my MVP. So now let's talk about the music. The songs were La Cucaracha.
I'm so mad.
Sexy and I Know It. Don't Want to Lose You. Bambaleo/Hero. La Isla Bonita. A Little Less Conversation. So, Ceci, what was your least favorite song?
A Little Less Conversation, I think. And La Cucaracha, but I feel like that wasn't even like a musical number. That was just like a moment of difficulty.
That's an excellent way of putting it.
I would say probably both of Shu's songs were my least favorite.
Yeah. A Little Less Conversation for sure. Yeah, honorable mention. La Cucaracha is so bad. And also in both, I want to quickly note, other people, well, the boys did put on costumes, but Shu put on costumes for both performances, and you would think that after the La Cucaracha performance, maybe that was something that was also bothering people, that he put on a costume.
Yeah.
I'm also going with A Little Less Conversation. This was called, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bad. And I just about like choked on whatever I was drinking when the Bulls came out. Like that was not good.
Also, like, how did Mike agree to that? I can understand Brittany agreeing to that, but how did Mike agree to that?
I have no clue.
He's a teenage boy. You never know with them.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah.
A Little Less Conversation. Definitely the worst with La Cucaracha. Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I can find the sales because I want to know if this is like a well-selling
it's not
song or not. I mean, like, I wanted to put some data behind it, but I'm going to definitively say this is probably one of their worst selling ones.
Yeah. So Ceci, what was your favorite song?
I didn't feel like the arrangement of the Gloria Estefan song, which I can't remember the title of, was very... Yeah, I didn't think it was like super creative or anything, but she sang it very beautifully. But like I think the mashup of the Gypsy Kings and Enrique Iglesias did it for me. Just because like they were the those three artists were the only like three artists that actually sing in Spanish that were featured in this whole episode about learning songs in Spanish. and they happen to be the best songs too, which I feel like says something about what should have been done.
Yeah.
Something that I think is really interesting about this time when it was made is that like I feel like reggaeton and other like Latin inspired music is now becoming a lot more popular in pop culture, even more so than it was. So I feel like now they would have even more options for specifically just like Hispanic and like Spanish spoken songs. Like unfortunately like Despacito comes to mind and all I can think of is Justin Bieber, but like I think
no, I was thinking like if this was done now, they would do a Despacito cover and they would do a Señorita cover. And that sucks. And I've made a list that I'm going to share at the point where we plug things. I'm going to make a list of musicians people should actually check out. Because I was like, I don't know, like if you guys want to follow my like literary translation Twitter, but here's what I can give you.
Yes, I love that because that's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, well, what would they do now? And like I obviously think like Enrique Iglesias is totally like classic for at least our generation. I don't know about like Gen Z, but like I kind of feel like
we could have done a Ricky Martin song.
That's what I was waiting for. I thought it was That's what I was like, please. Now I don't want any spoilers, but I'm hoping they do a Ricky Martin song. And if they don't, that's going to be in the Gleeboot because one, we're going to pay tribute to Ricky Martin in this episode. And two, Ricky Martin, what the hell? Like, of course. So
maybe that would have been too much of a like wink. They were like, we're not
that's
do
true.
That.
I did think about that too. Actually, my first thought was, oh my God, what if Shu does a Ricky Martin song? And then I would have been like, I can't do this podcast anymore. I'm done. But yeah, so like, on that note, like I'm so pro Ricky Martin in this episode and in general. I'm gonna go with Ricky Martin. I'm sexy and I know it because I actually kind of want him to do just like a full Spanish version because I feel like that would be way better than the original. Because I just love his voice and I also just really like him on screen. And also it was a lot of fun because I think this is really the only one where we see all of the kids getting involved. And those are numbers that are like, they're fun to watch because everyone kind of like gets involved and dances in their own way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sexy and I know it. I'm going to go with that.
I'm actually going to go with the Isle of La Bonita. Is that what it's called?
La Isla Bonita.
Madonna.
That one.
I do like that song.
Yeah, it's because I like the song and I like the performance and the dancing and the way their voices went together was really, really good. I think it was basically my like the part of the episode that I liked to watch the most. Doesn't really fit with the episode as we have discussed. But
you're right though, the dancing was really good.
Mm-hmm. It is a shame that they added that addendum to Shu's speech because I wish they would, like that's actually what I wanted to say is that I wish they would have just gone full force. Latinx artists only and Spanish speaking songs as much as you can. Like that's what I would have hoped for from this episode. And unfortunately they had to add that addendum because either they didn't secure the rights or they didn't find songs that were popular enough, whatever. Yeah. That's what I would have wanted from this episode, but
I'm going with Bamboleo / Hero. I love that song. It's like it stuck in my head and it was so energized and like Sam was being dreamy and it was I liked it. So now so that brings us to the end of our episode. So you said you had a list of artists to plug?
Yes. Okay. So, well, first I was thinking like, okay, if they replaced the Madonna and the Elvis Presley song, what would have been good? And I was like thinking about the time, and I was like, okay, a Selena song, like that would have sold. That would have sold.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
Also, like she was popular even at this time when they made this episode.
Yeah,
that's what I'm like.
saying.
Why?
Yeah.
I actually, at first, I thought the Gloria Estefan song was Selena, but I was like, no, I've never heard this song before.
Yeah, I feel like Santana could have done a really good, like, Como la Flor.
Yeah.
Or a duet with Ricky Martin to keep that, like, layering that Alyssa liked so much. Because I feel like, there are a lot of Selena duets that could have worked. Celia Cruz, she is, like, the queen of salsa. So she would have been amazing. That's Celia spelled with a C. So I felt like those would, like, fit into the episode. And then in the world of the Gleeboot, these are just like artists to listen to. So I was thinking, I wanted to give a range of sort of genres. But first off, like the campiness of Glee that I'm getting from this one episode I've seen, I feel like would go perfectly with Juan Gabriel. He's like super campy.
Okay.
There are three like sort of Mexican songstresses that I feel like would be like good for a lot of the women's voices that we're playing, like Mercedes would have done a good job with, or Santana. And those are Lila Downs, Lila Downs. Natalia Lafourcade is incredible, one of my favorite artists. Natalia Lafourcade, Lafourcade. And Julieta Venegas, who was like super popular at the time that this episode came out. So I feel like she would have been a good pick for like the love song sort of vibe. And then other than that, Calle 13 would have been a cool, fun, high energy, like rap sort of number. That would have been cool. Las Cafeteras are very good. And Cecilia Toussaint is like a rock musician that you should check out. So that's what I brought. I can type these names and give them to you, Cullen, if you want.
That would be awesome.
No, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right, so do you want to plug our SoMe's?
Yes. Do you want to do your Twitter first?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, like, I like only tweet about literary stuff and politics, you guys. So, like, if you want to go to a Glee Twitter, like, this is not it. But it's CC Weddell, CCWEDDELL is my Twitter.
Cool. So we are on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We are at Gleeboot Pod. And then Tumblr, we are at gleebootpod.tumblr.com.
You can check out my other podcast, Wanderers Cove, wherever you get your podcasts, and check us out at Wanderers Cove Podcast on Instagram.
Are you guys going to have a season 2?
I think it's just going to be a 1-season thing. Okay, yeah, cool. Just like a limited series.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram, a.m.swearingen. And I still haven't posted anything new, but I'm gonna get there, I promise. Probably.
But Ceci, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This was very fun.
I'm glad you had fun. This was a fun episode to record. All right, tune in next week to see Alyssa's mother, Beth.
Well listen, yes, you will see her.
You'll listen to her
We're going to get the dish on the popcorn dinner.
Yes.
I promise. I will do my investigative. I'm going to make notes about it right now. Why popcorn for dinner? Why popcorn and orange juice? Is this a family tradition? I'm going to find out all of it for you.
Thank you.
So see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.